Hey everybody, this is a review of the Shuoer Tape Pro. I will start off by saying that I recently fell in love with these. I, okay, so when I first got them, I plugged them into my file, and I plugged them in my desktop amp too, but into the file, and because I do test on my desktop amp. And I've got the Dark Voice, the tube amp, and I've got the THX 789, and I've got the ADI, but those are desktop amps, and that's not always really a fair comparison. Most people aren't going to go out and buy desktop amps and spend that kind of money for something that's so stationary. Most people are going to listen to on their phone or a portable amp, or like the file, like a DAP, right, or a Stellan Kern or whatever. So I like to listen on the portable stuff and really make my determination there, because that's what most people are going to listen on. So I use the file, and I have a couple other little portable amps and DAC amp combos that I use, DAPs. And that's where I did most of my testing. And when I had these on the file, well, first let's cover build a little bit. Let me not get ahead of myself. Let me unplug it here. This thing has a beautiful cable. I freaking love this cable. I mean, look, you can see the quality of, let me do this. Yeah, let's use the back of this envelope. That will give you a better, you can just see that this knurled metal 2.5 jack, really nice. And it comes with standard a 3.5 adapter, which is nice. And it's angled. So you know that L shape. So you can put it in your DAP and it comes out the side. The cable is, this really nice silver plated copper with some dark gray colored wire that's kind of woven in there. You get down to the split. The split is also really nice metal. They gave this little rubber, which I did in the unboxing, shows it kind of sliding up and down. I don't really care for that, but it does its thing. The cable's awesome. So big points right away, because a lot of manufacturers with freaking $500 IEMs will put really crappy cables. I don't know why. I mean, cable really makes a difference. Now, when you unplug this, you can see too, it's, they're red on one side and blue on the other for right and left. Nice metal cap on there. So if we go to the actual IEM, now, one of the things that right away was a problem for me was fit. And there were two reasons for the fit. One, the cable, this piece of the cable is stiff, and this is fairly tall right here. And this comes up off of here, and it makes this, you can see, well, let's just do on the one that's already plugged in. You can see that if you add this together, right, this distance right here from here to here is like over an inch. So this wire sticks straight up off the top of my ear, and I have smaller ears, so this kept falling off to the side, and I had to like pull it down actually and pinch the cable together under my chin to get it stay on my ear. Now, some of the bigger ears may not run into that issue, but it was an issue for me. That's number one. Number two was the fit into my ear. So let's get that off. This nozzle is massive. And I mean, I'm, this is in comparison, right? It's massive. It's, come on, focus in. There we go. That's better. So let me see here. Where's the, here. I have the 01s here. I mean, the blonde 01s. So there's the nozzle for, that is the tape. And there's the 01 right next to it. You can see the difference in size, right? This thing's huge. And with the tips that it came with, which were those blue foam tips, well, I'm sorry, no, it came with silicone tips, and I put some blue foam, and then I tried these tips right here, these foam tips, memory foam tips, which I like. Those are too big in my ear. It was just uncomfortable. It it wouldn't stay in my ear easy. I had to keep pushing it in. It would hurt. It was actually a little painful because that nozzle is so big. And on top of that, the tips that came with it and the tips I tried putting on were so hard to get on and so hard to get off. I was actually damaging them because this is so wide. And I did find in my little box of ear tips, let's see if I can make it so you can see this. I have these black ones. They're like silicone rubber or whatever. And they've got a nice wide opening. I mean, that opening is just about as wide as the opening on the nozzle. So these actually fit fairly easy on here. And I use the smaller ones that I have. Well, I should say fairly easy. I still have to like stretch them on a little bit. Hold on. So they end up getting on there like that. And you can see pretty much the whole nozzle is unobstructed. So that plays for that means nothing's getting blocked. It's not causing an issue with the sound. And it's even close enough down to the nozzle tip. And because this is so small, and it looks tiny on here, but now it fits in my ear comfortably. And these are super comfortable now with that. In fact, I would really enjoy it now without that, with this tip on here. So I don't know what the name of this tip is. I wish I did, so I could like put a link in there. I think this came with another set of IEMs, and they were really small, so I put them aside. They were too small for my ear, but stretched onto this one, they're perfect. So something to be aware of. This is a big nozzle. Now, okay, so that's the build stuff, right? So we'll put this aside. Actually, let's put this back together. The next thing on these is the sound, of course. That's what this video is about. That's what you care about mostly. And the sound, when I first plugged them into the Fio, they were biting my ears. They sounded good. Like the detail is fantastic on these. The upper end frequencies are really good. Bass, I didn't really feel was very much there. It was there, I could hear it, but it wasn't impactful at all. So I would say the bass wasn't really, they weren't heavy bass earphones or IEMs. Mids felt pretty good, but a little bit thin. Like the detail on everything was there. I could tell they had real potential. They reminded me of, what is it, the BQ YEZ or whatever, spring ones. Those that they had that tweeter, that piezo tweeter in them, or the piezo electrostatic driver, and that it had this phenomenal high end. If you see my video, if you go back to that, you'll hear me talking about it. It was like this upper end where I could hear every detail, but it sounded sparkly and good. But then my complaint was they had no bass. I kind of felt like these and those were almost in the same breed, like high end, but not much in the mids or bass. And so, that's what it was missing. So I went ahead and changed the filter. And so this is interesting. And this is a mistake I made. Even in the review, in the unbox, I said, oh, it's got 3 filters and it's going to take me 3 times. That was a mistake on my part. It's actually just this right here. So here's what it is. Both of these, the silver and the blue, are the filters. And what you do is, if you take out, like if I take the silver one out, there's nothing behind it. It's just basically a screw hole this screws into. But this one opens up into the IEM. So what happens was this came with the blue on this side and the silver on this side. So you use this little screwdriver it comes with. Where is it? I think I have it right here. Yeah, there it is. So it comes with this little screwdriver, and you should use this screwdriver. It is, it's rounded, like they've burnished the metal down or polished it down so that it's soft on the edges and not sharp. And that's important because these little filters are just anodized metal. And so if you use a regular old screwdriver with sharp or rough tips, you risk scratching the anodization off of these and making them look, worn out kind of. So I would use the screwdriver it came with. That way you don't over tighten and you don't damage these. But back to the change. So I flipped these over, and right away the bass got way better. The mids got way better. So moving the blue into the hole for the filter, taking the silver out and putting the blue in, gives you much better bass. And in fact, the bass became very tight and but still not strong. I still wanted more, and mids sounded better, but I did still want more, but it still had the highs were still biting my ears, and it was uncomfortable to listen to. It was fatiguing. And then a Christmas miracle happened. I plugged them into this thing, the Cayin N3 Pro, which, you know, I didn't give the greatest review to, and I think a lot of people haven't. I said that the digital side sounded kind of dead. It was analytical and it was there, but it was kind of dead to me. The tube side sounded good, but not fantastic. You know, it was okay. I don't know if it was really worth the money, but you know, it was a nice player, but it felt like elevated bass and elevated mids and elevated everything. So, you know, I didn't give it the highest marks. I plugged these in to this, and I'm going to tell you, I felt like this was made for these. Like when they were designing this device, they were using the Shuoer Tape Pros. That's what they were using, because these tapes, I'll put this here so it's kind of in the screen. These Shuoer Tape Pros sounded unbelievable on this device, on the 4.4 balanced. So I've got my adapter here and I plugged it in there. 4.4 balanced, using this 2.5 into the 4.4 like so. Okay. The sound was incredible. It was incredible. And I don't know another way to say it except for that. These were on par with IEMs, with the best sounding IEMs that I've heard with this device. With the FIO, I didn't like them. I mean, I liked them, but they didn't excite me. I just feel like, okay, they got a lot of detail. Yeah, that's what everyone says. That's true. They got a good high end, good. Mids are decent, but not great. And the bass isn't really, it's okay, but not there. Flip the filters over. It got a lot better, but still not something where I would like highly recommend these. Plug it into this device, and suddenly these things are like magic. Not only was the bass perfect for me, not boomy, but it was very strong, rumbly. I could feel it, but clear and tight at the same time. Mids, very good, very clear, very strong. One of the things I use to test the mids, I like vocals, and I think vocals are a good test for mid-range and sub-bass, especially male vocals. And I listened to a song by Brett Eldridge and Meghan Trainor, "Baby It's Cold Outside," and that song, Brett Eldridge has a very deep voice. You know, he's a tenor singer, and Meghan Trainor has a kind of a mid to higher voice that's a little bit musky, I guess. I don't know, but either way, they're both very nice. It's recorded very clearly, and it sounded magical on this set. I could hear layers. You know, people talk about layers in audio, and you don't always know what that means, right? Because it's kind of different for everybody. But what I mean when I say layers is that I could hear, it was almost like there was a recorded track for every frequency in the song. Like every instrument had its own recording track. Like I could hear the drums, the snare, the trombone, the clarinets, the vocals, the different aspects of the vocal, the different tone in their vocals. I could hear like the guitars and the roll off of the notes and the decay of the cymbals, and everything was just, it's incredible. I don't know how else to say it. These paired with this device, okay, so Shuoer Tape Pro flipped with the blue filter in, digital mode on the Cayin N3 Pro, and I was blown away. I listened to that, then I listened to some classical, because classical is good. Like Alyssa Wellerstein, which I like a lot. She's a cello player, and she does one with I think it's with the Chicago Orchestra. And large orchestral music like that that's where you can see all the different layers, right? Because there's like 4 trombones on one side and 5 French horns back there, and you know, clarinets and flutes and violins and cellos and gongs and bass drums and bongos and everything you can think of. And there's like 5 of each one. And I could hear clearly all the instruments, you know, in front of each other, behind each other, the layering of all those different instruments coming together. I could hear each one. It was really amazing. You know, it was blowing me away. I just ended up listening to for like a couple hours straight on this thing. And I listened to a lot of rock, and I listened to a guitar sounds sounded incredible. So I was listening to Rodrigo and Gabriella. I really like them. Their early recordings, like Hahnemann, I'm sorry, their album 1111 and the song Hahnemann and a couple others on that album, they're recorded so well. And it's like I could hear very clearly Gabriella's thumbs hitting on the wooden face of the acoustic guitar, right? I could clearly hear that. I could hear the pick as it was coming to touch the guitar string and then buzzing off of it, and all these little details, the sound of the string on the guitar when it gets picked, there's that tone right dead in the middle of it, but on the either side of that tone there can be a buzzing or the roll off of that sound. And a lot of IEMs have the ability, more so than headphones, to really pull out all that detail. And some IEMs, you can really hear that. And when you hear that little detail of each string being played, it gives you this three-dimensional effect. And man, these just pulled it off. So now, of course, they did it on this device. I truthfully didn't like it on the file. Maybe I could have played with the EQ on the file and it gotten better. I don't like futzing with EQs. I know, a lot of people like that stuff. For me, whatever you get, it should sound good the way it is. That's the way I feel like, when you go buy a car, you turn the key, it should drive, right? It should run. It should do what they say it does. I kind of feel like that with all this gear, is that, it should sound good. It should sound the way it's supposed to sound out of the box. With the cable it has plugged into any player, you shouldn't have to mess around with the EQ settings. You can, of course, adjust to your preference. But typically most people, I think, don't play around with the EQ, because especially for someone like me who's testing a lot of IEMs, I listen to a lot of different music. I'd have to have 100 different EQ settings. I'd always be messing with that. So no EQ settings on the Fio, no EQ settings on this. This device sounded like these were made for each other. I mean, they should sell this together as a set. That's what they should do. They should get together and say, hey, let's package our stuff together. And, because if someone heard this together, they'd rave about both, because it sounded so good with this device. And I can't say that with other IEMs. I mean, some IEMs sound, pretty good with this, but not like this Shuoer Tape. Man, the detail was unbelievable. I mean, the things that I could hear in songs, and not just there, but it was good. The tone was right. It was pleasing to listen to, exciting to listen to. It made me want to listen to all my music again. Whenever that happens, that's when I know something special is going on. So I don't have a lot else to say. Detail on these is unbelievable with the right player. Not a desktop amp. This is just, portable. Like I said, that's what I really want to test with. And with this device now, it's like, I don't want to take this away. This is how I'm always going to keep this now. When I want to stop, take some time out, and to listen for pleasure instead of just reviewing, I think this is what I'm going to be listening to. I mean, no kidding. It was that awesome of an experience having these two together. So, okay. So back to just the Shuoer tapes. I think these are an excellent IEM. The cable is beautiful. The accessories are great. The filter, just one filter to flip over. If you like it, you don't put it back. I can't fault it. For $129, this is like kind of unbeatable in that sense. With that device, this sounded better than IEMs I've heard that are $500. Well, I have a set on the shelf right now I'm selling for $600, and these sound better. They sound better with that Cayin N3 Pro. On the Fio F11 Pro, they were biting my ears. The upper end frequency was too much, and I couldn't really tone it down, and the bass wasn't as good. But definitely worth $129. Completely worth $129. I even said to myself when I got these, if I don't like these, I'm keeping them, and I'm going to use this cable for something else, because I love this freaking cable. Yeah, I mean, these are worth the money for sure. So great detail. Once the filter was set for deeper bass, the bass was much better, very tight, very detailed. I could pick out all the layers of the songs, of the instruments in the background, of people's voices. The kind of thing that I like, the kind of like, I mean, I'm not ADD or anything, but when I listen to songs and I start to hear all the little details, my brain goes a little crazy, and I want to hear more and more details. I really get excited by that. So these did that for me. this is definitely a good set of IEMs. All right. Well, I hope that helps you. You guys have a great Christmas.